I'm joined now by Senator Dan Sullivan of the great state of Alaska. Good morning, Senator Sullivan. What would you like the president to be asked tonight when he appears before the press?
Well, look, I think, Hugh, there's his mental acuity. He's going to claim that he, of course, is with it. We all know that he's not with it. I think two questions that are really important. One, he's the commander-in-chief. He's the commander-in-chief. Everybody's looking at him from the perspective of a candidate for president. But right now, he's the commander-in-chief, and we're in one of the most dangerous world situations we've seen in decades. And is he up to the task? If he, according to his own team, works from like 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., right? When you're commander-in-chief, that's not the clock that you need to keep. And the second one relates to national security. There's all this focus on the NATO commitment of 2% of GDP, which I've been probably one of the lead guys in the Senate. I'm pressing our NATO allies to meet that. I met with the Prime Minister of Canada a couple of days ago, and he got an earful from the Republican senators in that meeting on how weak they are. But the Biden administration defense budget every year cuts defense spending, and right now under the Biden administration defense budget, we're shrinking the Army, shrinking the Navy, can't build Navy ships, and we're on the path to go below 3% of GDP next year. We've only been below 3% of GDP 4 times in the last 80 years. So
that's remarkable.
I would ask him a lot about the dangers in the world, and is he up for it?
Senator, I want to play for you a clip from the debate 2 weeks ago tonight between former President Trump and President Biden. This is cut number 1. It's the most memorable lie that the president told last week, 2 weeks ago. Cut number 1, please.
Truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
Now, Senator, Abbey-gate, we lost 2 SEALs in the Arabian Gulf this year, 3 soldiers in Jordan. Should he be confronted with this?
100%. That's a great point. 13 brave Americans, mostly Marines and corpsmen at the Abbey-gate. And the weakness that exudes from this administration's policies, and that Afghanistan withdrawal was the number one example, has unleashed chaos everywhere. One of the things that I think is a really important question from the campaign perspective, again, going back to national security, Hugh, is are we, as the United States and our allies, safer today than we were 4 years ago under the Trump administration? The answer is absolutely not. So, yes, he should be confronted with that because it's a direct falsehood.
My next question would be, the Danes and the Dutch sent F-16s to Ukraine this week. It's been 3 years. Where are our F-16s from America to Ukraine? Do you have any idea, Senator, where they are in the pipeline?
Yeah, they're stuck. And I will tell you this. I've been focused on this. 2 years ago, I hosted these brave Ukrainian pilots, one call sign Juice. He is unfortunately now dead. I hosted them with a bipartisan group of U.S. senators, and they said, we need these F-16s. We can fly them. This group of senators wrote the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the Secretary of Defense, on a letter that I led saying, let's get these done. Let's get these over there. They need them. The administration said we're working on it. This is 2 years ago, Hugh. I was part of a group of senators that met with President Zelensky yesterday. After our meeting, I went up to him and had a discussion about the F-16s. And I said, Mr. President, what's the status? He said, we don't have them. We don't have them. This is huge frustration.
They're either there or they're not, and they're not there from
directly
us.
To me. It's unbelievable. This is, as you know, this is the big problem with this administration. They're not in it to win it. Every single weapon system that the Ukrainians say they need have been slow rolled until the Congress, mostly the Senate, have pressed them. I have pressed these guys, Jake Sullivan, everybody, on the F-16s, on HIMARS, on Javelins, on Patriots. As you know, Hugh, every single one of these weapon systems has been delayed for months, if not years. Think of the progress the Ukrainians could have made against the Russians had all these weapon systems, including the F-16s, gotten to the front lines. The Biden administration is too afraid of Putin, and they're not in it to win it, and that's one of the reasons we see the stalemate.
I'm talking with Senator Dan Sullivan of Alaska. He's on the Armed Services Committee, a great friend of the program, and he will be watching, as I will, the news conference tonight at 5:30 p.m. The president's news conference will be carried on the Salem News Channel. I had Ambassador Oren on, former Israeli ambassador to the United States, Senator Sullivan, and I asked him the question I asked you, what would you ask? He said, are you willing to put teeth into don't? And he was referring to President Biden's one-word don't to Putin, which was ignored, one-word don't to the Iranian Ayatollahs and IRGC, which was ignored. What do you think about, would you put teeth into don't? And if so, what's the follow-up?
Well, the most obvious one on teeth into don't is returning to the Trump administration's policies against Iran. We did something, the Trump administration, working with the Republican Senate, did something that's hard to do, as you know, Hugh, and that's reestablishing deterrence against the Iranians. Killing Soleimani, unleashing the maximum pressure campaign, and the Biden administration came in and immediately lifted those sanctions on the oil and gas regime with regard to Iran. I have gotten a group of bipartisan senators to go to the president and say, Mr. President, reimpose these oil and gas sanctions on Iran. Think about this number. At the end of the Trump administration, because of this maximum pressure campaign against Iran, they had about $4 billion in foreign reserves. As you know, that's not a lot. That's not a lot to play mischief around the world. Biden comes in, lifts those sanctions, undertakes their appeasement policy against Iran, and right now the Iranians have about $80 billion in foreign reserves, and we know what they're doing with it. They're funding terrorism through Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis. With that money, there is a strong bipartisan consensus that I have pressed this administration, including the President Jake Sullivan, on reimpose these sanctions. What are we waiting for?
Now, Senator, I want to close this way.
They sanction Alaska's oil and gas sector more than they sanction Iran's.
I want to close this way, Senator. You've known Joe Biden for a long time. Do you think he is capable of being president right now, and whether or not he'll stay as their nominee? Because you know him.
No, I don't. And look, the one issue, though, that I think we got to keep an eye on, Hugh, during all this discussion of his mental acuity, regardless of who's going to be at the top of the ticket, whether it's Joe Biden or the Democrats and the liberal media establishment succeed in taking him out, it's all about the far left failed policies, and that's still going to be the case, regardless of who is at the top of the ticket. So these policies are all driven by the far left, whether it's the anti-Israel, anti-American energy, pro-Iran, anti-military policies, open border. None of that's going to go away, whether Joe Biden is at the top of the ticket or someone else. And I think we need to keep our eye on that ball, because that's what the election is ultimately going to be all about, the policies of the Biden administration versus the policies of the Trump administration. We're going to have a very unique election. Doesn't happen much in American history, where you have two presidents, two candidates who actually have records on what they did. And I think the Trump administration record in so many areas is head and shoulders above what Biden's done.
You're very right about the uniqueness. Not since Grover Cleveland.